Ladies and gentlemen, this is Gail Morgan welcoming you to the Libertarian Counterpoint's Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. You've heard their point, now listen to the counterpoint.
Welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. We're coming at you on Cinco de Mayo of 2021. And piece of trivia, Cinco de Mayo is not an Independence Day. So, it's a little bit of trivia going into the show, but it's still a fun day. So before we go any further, though, let's introduce you to our panel. And no, we haven't been drinking yet either.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. And in our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett, who is a pilot of the state of California.
I just put my lipstick on here, my deep renewal lipstick okay. There.
Is that a Cinco de Mayo kind of ritual? Or is that...
It's beginning today. It is. Yes.
There we go. And my name is Jason McPhee, and I will be your host today. So let's jump into the topics of the day. And one of them that's been being kicked around quite a bit is vaccine passports. It's there's a lot of confusion around it. Is it a thing? Should it be a thing? The government, so far, Biden's saying that there won't be any kind of an official vaccine passport, that the government requires you to travel from place to place or to access certain services here in the United States, that won't be required by government. However, there are some businesses that are actually thinking the idea sounds like it might be helpful to them. And these vaccine passport idea is picking up in other places, like in the European Union. My understanding is that they're looking for some kind of a vaccine passport to allow people to travel from country to country within the European Union. So this is one of those things that, we might be facing, and it raises a lot of questions potentially for libertarians. So to kick it off, I'll throw this one to you, Tim, and you can sort of dive into vaccine passports for us.
I don't know. Am I going to have one for measles too, or is it just COVID? It's like, of all the things, there's been lots of them that have killed people, and never had to have one yet. But we've had lots of diseases and lots of vaccinations and stuff. So why this one? Especially with a huge survival rate up at the 99th percentile.
Yes.
Well, it seems a little excessive as, but now I've grown inoculated from excessiveness in the ideas that come up by these COVID Nazis out there, including wearing the whole track team wearing masks during 2-mile runs and other such strenuous activities being a requirement. At least in New Hampshire and so on. So I'm a little jaded. I think it's worthy of restricting people's ability to travel around, even by private entities. I mean, sure, you can, if you've got a massive unlimited market and you want to limit your market, I suppose, you want to cut your own throat, you want to slice big segments off of your bottom line, go right ahead. But do I think it's worthwhile? No, because, what about the people that have already gotten immunity from having had the disease? And I suppose they got to have some thing where they test you for immunities built up in your blood. And then, whether you get it from a vaccine or from having had the disease prior, I guess could be, they could come up with something like that. But I just, I think it's excessive. I think it's ridiculous, along with a lot of this stuff. And that's just where I'm at on it right now. There you have it. What about you, Leon?
Well, I think you raised the right this year, Tim, in that supposing that they government and businesses decide that they're going to require these vaccine passports, then the question becomes, what next? And why are we being required? Why are we even talking about this, to be honest? Why are we having a discussion about the possibility of vaccine passports in the first case? And because of COVID. So what about all the other diseases? Measles, polio, smallpox, all these other things, all these other diseases have afflicted us at some point in time or the other. But nobody have ever talked about having a vaccine passport for those things. And then, Tim, you're right. Look at the survival rate for this thing. It is so high. Why for this one? There are so many things that kill us from time to time. People die of old age, for crying out loud. Should we have a vaccine passport for that? Well, there's no vaccine for that so far. But should they require us to have something that say, we're not really old enough to die? What nonsense is this? But you see what is happening here and what have happened since the beginning of the pandemic is the government have gone further into dissecting and taking away our liberties. These vaccine passports is really the passport to them removing more of our liberties. Now, private, it looked like it's going to be centered around private businesses so far, yes. But what next, though? Is the government going to find a way to find some way to use that to intrude upon our own liberties? Look at social media. Social media, they're all private companies, no problem. Well, look at what just happened. We just found out that the California government, the government of our precious state, is now colluding. You want to talk about collusion? Here's collusion. They are colluding with social media to remove content off of their platform, even though the social media people, they're private companies. What do you think is going to happen when private companies start to require vaccine passports? Sooner or later, the government is going to get in on the game, because this is how they're going to take away our liberties. Well, this is how they'll continue to take away our liberties. So we got to be careful about this. No vaccine passport, none whatsoever. And we should stand against these things from now until eternity.
All right. Well, I stand beside you on that one. And I would also point out that the HIPAA, H-I-P-A-A, or whatever those laws are, HIPAA, we're supposed to be secure in our privacy regarding our health issues. So if I'm in a room and everybody else in the room had to have a vaccine passport to get into the room, everybody knows I've had the vaccine. So what happens to my HIPAA protection there?
There you go. Good point.
So if it's a private entity that's asking everyone to basically violate a federal law, it's a federal law, the whole HIPAA thing. So yes. In order to go in and comply with their little law, isn't that also against the law? I mean,
Sure. Good point.
We all know that we violate numerous federal laws every day, because there's so many of them, and so it's bound to happen where one of the federal laws supersedes or conflicts with another one. So this is another issue that I also see with that. I've lost my privacy to vaccine opaqueness. I want to, maybe I want to keep my vaccine opaqueness and not have everyone know that I've had it or whatever, for whatever reason. You see?
Fair enough. I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, I had a few comments, maybe a little bit of pushback on some of this too. One of them, though, is the insight that you made about the track team, and I actually do a little bit of coaching of baseball, Little League baseball, and we just played a game, and there's been all kinds of rules where they want you to have masks on in the dugouts. Coaches have to wear masks all the time, but they actually don't require, at least here in California right now, the kids to wear the masks on the field. But we were playing against a team, and that team wore their mask the whole game, and I couldn't believe it. I mean, these are like, little 12-year-old kids, and they got them running around in masks, kid out in the middle of left field, all by himself wearing a mask. I mean, the silliest thing you can imagine. I mean, he's literally not within 100 feet of somebody else. and he's standing out there by his lonesome wearing a mask.
Yeah, I'll guarantee the coaches are all Democrats.
Probably so.
Probably
so. Well, this is California, so that's a very good bet.
It's very good bet. Although our team, we were a little bit flouting the rules there.
Who won?
Coaches had to. We did in that game. I think that other team might have had a little bit too much soy going on in there.
Yeah. They couldn't breathe. I mean,
that's right.
Advantage.
That's right.
They had an advantage. They weren't getting enough oxygen.
Can you imagine how claustrophobic that must be? They're not getting enough oxygen. Yeah. They're running around out there. Good Lord.
Yeah, but anyway, that was one little thing. But another thing you mentioned, Leon, about the idea about passports for the elderly, almost, in age. That seemed kind of a little far out. But if you think about it, what happened in New York is they literally put restrictions on what old people could do. You were stuck in an old folks' home, exactly. And they were gonna, they were gonna put people in there who were sick with you. And I mean, you want to trust these guys to restrict your movement? They're literally gonna shove a sick person in next to you, and they're gonna say, "This is for your health."
Yeah. Tell me this thing.
We're dying right and left. Yeah, it's crazy. But aside from those, sort of tangential issues, the one thing though about a private passport though is more of an issue of freedom of association, and I think that is something that from a libertarian perspective, if you want to say, hey, look, I've got a restaurant and my customers don't want to be around somebody who's not vaccinated, so I don't see a problem with putting up a sign that says, hey, if you're not vaccinated, don't come, don't bother coming in because we're going to check your card or something else like that. So that would be a freedom of association thing. Now, I don't think that's necessarily a smart idea for a business, but like with anything, if you wanted to be a place that allowed cigar smoking or something else, I think that ought to be up to the right of the business to allow people to associate as they choose. And if somebody says they've all been vaccinated, that's one of those things that maybe somebody might want to.
Okay, so I guess I can't exclude white people, or I can't exclude black people, or from my business, right? Because there's a law that would violate, right? That anti-discrimination, 64 Act, and so. I hear what you're saying, because except for the HIPAA laws, there's probably nothing that's illegal about restricting people that haven't been either in some way or another immune from having COVID and therefore transmitting it. So you could do that, notwithstanding the HIPAA stuff. Okay. So, like I said, if you want to restrict your potential customers and cut half of them or more or so out, then I suppose it's your right to restrict. And hopefully there'll be another business, a competing business that's down the street that's got a big old welcome sign for all those people that don't have the vaccine. They can all come in there and intermingle.
Sure.
And that's the beauty of it, because it allows for the natural experiment as well. I mean, one group of people all want to behave a certain way, another group of people, and you get to see, hey, that other group of people is doing something crazy because they're all, something's going on wrong over there.
Or maybe, wait a sec, maybe the place that allows any Tom, Dick, or Harry or Mary coming in there without any kind of COVID protections.
Tom, Dick, or Harry, Mary.
In this day, he's not wrong. In this day and age, he's not wrong.
That's right. It's not wrong. So, and then if they found out that, hey, nobody ever gets sick. I mean, they don't have any issues. Their staff is still totally well, and they've been hanging around with these Neanderthals that never got a vaccination. Then maybe that would foretell something for the store or the business that said, no, you got to have a vaccine. maybe that would educate them, and maybe they'd start dropping their restrictions, so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, you're right. Let's do it.
I am fine. I'm very much fine with what is being proposed here, Jason. I mean, I guess what at the bottom line you are saying, let the free market make the determination of how we associate. I totally agree with that. But I could guarantee you, what's going to come out if this was ever implemented. You know what is going to come out of this? One big discrimination lawsuit. Because I am sure you're going to find out that there are varying rates of vaccination between whites and blacks, or between whites and Hispanics and that kind of stuff. And some enterprising lawyer going to come out and say, look at you guys with your white supremacy. You're trying to keep black people out because they feel, or Hispanics out, or somebody out, because they feel entitled to your property. They feel they have a right to come and sit in your restaurant and be served as if there's such a right.
Yeah.
This is the entitlement mentality that's going to end in a discrimination lawsuit in what you just proposed, which I totally agree with the proposal. I'm sorry, Tim, go ahead.
No, yeah, that's a good point. So I guess, we could all live with the idea that if we're afraid of doing anything for a potential lawsuit like that, anti-discrimination lawsuit, then, well, that's kind of how we live, I suppose, in a way.
Well, unfortunately.
Yeah. It's like the previous episode where I brought up about police officers not wanting to confront black suspects anymore because they don't want to lose their entire livelihood and get thrown in prison if they, if something happens that they didn't even intend to happen, like a guy dies, so on and so forth. So, it's, you're probably right. It's a sad state of affairs. We probably shouldn't let that dictate what things we find right or wrong to do moving forward. But it's another factor, this crazy, whacked up, weird world that we live in. We have to do.
I think this is the kind of world we get to when we go away from principle, right? I mean, the libertarian principle is pretty clear on this, and that's that you should have the freedom to associate with who you want to associate with. And once you start allowing the government to come in for whatever reason they say is, for whatever social reason they're claiming they want to engineer things, the bottom line is it's your freedom of association that should rule the day. Otherwise, you really don't have freedom. If you don't get to decide, what you want to do, what kind of music you want to go listen to, who you want to hang out with, all that kind of stuff, you really aren't free. And when you start layering in all these different things, then you run into all these different conflicts and you say, well, I'm going to, you're discriminating here. And the bottom line is freedom of association means you're going to make some decisions that may be stupid or otherwise, but you're not free if you don't have the freedom to do that.
Yeah, and that was Rand Paul's argument against the 65 or 64 Act about making it illegal to restrict people on the basis of race, color, and the other list of things that they made illegal in the United States federally. So, that was his argument. In a truly free society, we should have freedom of association. Now, especially today, can you imagine with Yelp, and other ways of communicating that, hey, this restaurant doesn't serve, black people, let's say, and it's discriminatory, and I tried to go to this restaurant, but because I was black, they would not allow me to go in there. Okay, so now you put that on Yelp. Boom.
Yeah.
I
don't think you need the government to stop.
Yeah.
Which restaurant will want to be known as that? Seriously.
Yeah, exactly.
In present day America.
Yeah.
It reminds me of helmet laws and seatbelt laws.
Yeah.
They go right down the same avenue, if you ask me. It's not bad enough I might get killed with a head injury riding a motorcycle. It's not bad enough I may die flying through that windshield because I didn't wear my seatbelt. But, oh, Lord, help me if I have to spend $200 on a ticket for not wearing my seatbelt. Okay, I definitely want to avoid that. Never mind the death by, serious bodily injury to my head. Never mind that. I'm not worried about that in the least. So it's the same thing. Oh, I don't want to get in trouble with the feds for having a restaurant that doesn't allow black people. But, I don't want to do that. I don't want to get a fine for that. But heaven forbid it being shut down, because, we truly are living in a day and age when if some restaurant didn't allow black people to go into, I wouldn't go there just out of principle. I mean, if that, so okay, I went bankrupt because I was stupid and prejudiced and a bigot. But at least I didn't get fined by the federal government. It's the same thing.
Well, Tim, with respect to the seatbelt thing and all that, the government just wants to get a percentage out of that, right? I mean, that's right. $200 or whatever it is.
Yes.
Right.
Jason just. Oh, he got to the bottom line. Jason,
that's right. He just nailed it. He just nailed it.
He cut to the chase right away. And yes, this is true. This is the only reason for probably 90% of the laws on the books today. It's just to get revenue. I mean, seriously.
Yes.
Well, here's something too, and we've talked about this on the show a little bit before, but for anybody who doesn't, think that the free market is the best way to regulate irrational bias such as racial discrimination, all you have to do is look at the Jackie Robinson story. At the time, you had Jim Crow South, where literally the government told you how you had to regulate your facilities. So, you didn't have a choice. So that the whole society had to be racist. I mean, if you had a train, if you had a bus, there was a law that told you had to have these sections on those buses and trains and stuff, and you were going to get fined if you didn't. But, with baseball, there was no law that said, that the baseball team in the North couldn't, have black people on the team. So they did. And the teams in the South, they probably wouldn't have wanted to do that because they would have been going over their Jim Crow laws. But now suddenly they're competing with somebody who's not following along with their rational bias when they took Jackie Robinson and broke the color barrier in baseball. And pretty soon, within a few years, most baseball players or most baseball teams had a black player on their team. Not required by law. It was just competition.
Yeah.
And by
the free market, free market did that.
Exactly. Yeah. And by 1965, when the Voter Rights Act came up, baseball was overrepresented with black people. I know you don't like that term overrepresented, but I mean, it's a bigger percentage of the population than they represent. There was more black people in baseball than that percentage of the population, which just shows that, and it wasn't required by government. It literally was just competition drove this.
Exactly.
And that's what happens when, you allow people to pay for their irrational bias. People say, well, wait a second, that's expensive. But man, if you have a rule through government where you say, hey, all these teams have to segregate, there's no competition and you're not paying the price for your bigotry. And that's what's so terrible about it. But I think a lot of people who push this stuff, they assume government will be on the right side. But we saw with Jim Crow, government was on the wrong side of this.
And slavery. Slavery was legal. Slavery was legal. But the main thing about all of this, though, the bottom line of all of this, we as a society are moving away from some of our founding principles: life, liberty, and the freedom to pursue happiness. Well, the document said the pursuit of happiness, but I say freedom to pursue happiness. We are moving away from those principles, and we are ending up in a place that many of us don't recognize anymore. That America, the America that was founded 240 how many years ago, is not the America we are living in today. Yes, we had slavery. Yes, we have had Jim Crow in the interim. But we had freedom. We had principles which will guide us to the promised land, shall we say. But we are moving away from those principles today. And we are caught up in this search for this utopia, which will be nothing but a disaster.
Well, I guess it's about time for our Knucklehead noise bureau, where we have to jump on something crazy somebody is saying, aside from all the stuff that normally happens in government. And in this case, it is our favorite vice president of the day, Kamala Harris. Or president, should I say? I don't know. They can never seem to decide who's president.
Yeah,
who's
because
vice president on that team.
Even Joe Biden don't know.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sure he won't know when she finally takes that seat as her own. Just one day it'll be like musical chairs. He'll show up and there's no chair for him.
No chair for him.
Kamala be sitting.
Yeah, Biden's just Mama Guy and Kamala, I think.
Well, anyway, the specific quote that we had, it wasn't Mama Guy, which is, Leon can share with us if we have time more on that. But it's actually, she said something quite extraordinary the other day. She said, more jobs have been created in the first 2 months of our administration than in the first 2 months of any other White House in history, she said. And now this is coming from, it's not like they had an actual plan or anything else they did. They literally just got out of the way. I mean, government has literally been, we've never gone through a period in history like this last year where government has actually strangled business. And so then government lightened their stranglehold on business. And it's like, wow, what a business is doing great now. It's like they didn't do anything except get out of the way. And they're yes, you think they'd all become Syrians.
Yeah, I mean, you said it in a nutshell, Jason. I'm trying to hurry up to get into Mama Guy, but the federal government and other governments had their knee on the economy's neck for 9 months, and but fortunately, when they finally let up, the economy wasn't totally dead, and it started coming back to life, and so it came back quick. They are correct if you can find documented evidence, which doesn't go back very far because it's changed so much the way they document this. So who knows? In all of history, that's boastfulness right there. American history is what she probably means, and you just can't tell. You can't tell. You can't go back far enough where they had similar records. So, but where you can, yes, in that little short time of history, she's correct. But again, all of it is based on recuperation from being held back because of the lockdowns and so on. So there you have it. So big deal. It doesn't mean anything. So Mama Guy.
Okay, quickly. I don't know if we have time. Mama Guy is a Trinidad word. We speak English in Trinidad, but we have our own version of English. We call it Tringlish. Mama Guy is a Trinidad word that means either deceit or flattery. It depends on its context. I think time is up.
Very good.
And that bit of mama guying that we've been doing to all of you out there, flattery, and I guess we've been dispelling some of the government's mama guying too.
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. Then on that note, we'd like to thank you for joining us today, and we hope to see you at the next one. Stay free.
Indeed.